I think the strangest proposal of my theory is the idea of Blackholeum. Just saying it sounds very, very strange. So what is Blackholeum? Well, if I had, let's say I got a Blackholeum sample about the size of a cantaloupe in front of me, which I wouldn't want in front of me because a sample of Blackholeum that size would have about the mass of Neptune in it. So a cantaloupe-sized chunk of Blackholeum. What's going on in Blackholeum according to my theory? Well, since particles don't cross event horizons, that means they all have to get crammed together. So you have mass being crammed into smaller and smaller spaces by the curvature of spacetime. And if what's said about neutron stars is correct, then you will compress this mass and eventually you'll get strange matter. So either Blackholeum would be made of neutronium matter or will be made of strange matter. I think it's probably made of strange matter. So the gravity has crushed all the neutrons and protons and electrons out of their particular states, and now it's become this quark matter that's called strange matter. Now the intense gravity makes every place in this strange matter viable for a gravitational collapse, and so you'd expect, oh, everything's going to fall into this black hole that's emerging, but because of my theory, since nothing crosses event horizons, the mass doesn't fall in. It kind of collects around these bubbles of space-time that are caused by space-time inversions below event horizons. And when those bubbles form, mass collects around the edges of those bubbles, and that mass must collapse, and so the bubbles around the central bubble will now compete for mass, and new black holes will emerge, and this process is kind of unyielding. It will always go on. As long as a gravitational collapse is possible at any position, it will induce other gravitational collapses. So Blackholeum, first of all, if you were looking at it, you couldn't look at it with light shown on it. You could only see it with background light because it's going to behave like a black hole. It's going to absorb all energy and mass. Nothing will go inside an event horizon, of course, but it's not going to release any energy. So likely the only radiation coming off of Blackholeum would be Hawking radiation. So you'd have this cantaloupe-sized Blackholeum mass, and inside of it, it's bubbling. It's always forming these throats of inverted space-time that have the geometry of hyperpseudospheres, so an inverted spherical surface, so inverted spherical hypersurface. And these inverted spherical hypersurfaces would be shooting all over the place in higher dimensions, where they could connect with other black holes, forming Einstein-Rosen bridges. And it's understanding that it's making these potential Einstein-Rosen bridges all the time that links into my theory as to why we see the dark matter phenomenon. It's because there are Einstein-Rosen bridges forming between supermassive black hole centers of galaxies, stringing all the galaxies together like a great big web or net of these space-time filaments in higher dimensions, which explains why we don't see where the gravity's coming from. But that's all just, it's all just space-time geometry. I'm not writing it off as easy, I'm writing it off as different. That's still difficult. The idea of what Blackholeum is, in my theory, is a whole different kettle of fish, because it's going to have to involve particle physics. And it may be that the solutions for these emergent Einstein-Rosen bridges and inverted space-time, it might come directly from string theory applied to quantum mechanics. I don't know. Because the one thing that I've always wondered about my theory is, where does the space-time inversion begin? How does it originate? Because when I'm trying to, let's say I've got a supercooled fluid in front of me. It's liquid. And that supercooled fluid will not freeze as long as it's just kept in that supercooled state with no interruption. But if I take a single crystal that is of the composition of this supercooled fluid and I put it in there, that single crystal forms the seed for the entire block of supercooled fluid to suddenly freeze over. If you put a little, if you disturb supercooled water, it'll turn to ice. It's actually kind of a beautiful thing to see. And I've only ever seen it on video, but it's an amazing thing to see. But the point is that in order for supercooled fluid to freeze, you need a seed to begin the process. And I don't see where inversion comes from out of space-time unless there's some kind of quantum mechanical or string theory seed that allows for the inversion to take place. I remember hearing that Professor Brian Greene did some calculations to see if space-time could tear, and he found out that, okay, yes it can. It can tear and repair itself almost immediately. Well, I question whether it would repair itself almost immediately if the situation is that a gravitational collapse around that tear results in the production of a throat of inverted space-time. But really, I'm not nervous about the ideas of my theory as I present them in general relativity. I feel very confident about them. I do. I feel like I could go before physicists and say, look, when I use the Eddington-Finkelstein transformation, what I find is that there's still a singularity at 2 GM. So that means that I don't know how you can use that coordinate system as a means of getting inside the black hole, going below the event horizon. I mean, that's just makes sense because you haven't removed the singularity. And to my knowledge, there is no transformation for the Schwarzschild metric which does not produce either singularities or zero for the event horizon itself. And of course, also the transformation that I'm asking people to consider is the Einstein-Rosen transformation, which declares it as zero. Not a problem. It's just that it also incorporates the vanishing of time, so nothing goes inside. Again, it's just reinforcing my theory over and over and over again, saying you're not getting inside the event horizon. That idea is just, it doesn't really make any mathematical sense. I've tried to put that across. But it still leaves the great question of, okay, if you're not going inside, then what's the outside look like? And the outside is Blackholeum, this kind of constantly gravitational string producing mess of mass that's just bubbling and fizzing, and you can't even see it doing it because you can't even put light on it to show that it's being done. You can only calculate that it's being done. And it's an amazing thought, but what this stuff actually is, I don't know.